What will you do if you have a daughter who happens to be a minority in a Muslim majority country? What do you think will happen to her? Well, if you live in Great Britain, for instance, which is predominantly a Christian country, as I knew it was, you can expect that she would probably be gang raped by elderly men older than the age of her father. And the media and the police would then work their best to cover it up. And here in Bangladesh or Pakistan, for instance, the story is nothing much different. Most likely, she would be abducted in front of her parents. The harsh reality is this: if you have a daughter, okay, who can barely make sense of this world because of her young age, but to make matter even worse, not only that she is helpless, she is also surrounded by men who thinks it is virtuous to rape and murder her because she is an infidel, a booty. Well, that's the reality of the minorities in most of the Muslim majority countries. Look, I don't want to talk too much about the Yazidis because most of you already know what happened to them. But a prime example is the Islamic invasion of Bharat. And one very recent incident is the so-called War of Independence in Bangladesh. Out of hundreds of millions that has been butchered, this is a very recent example where how minorities were targeted only because of their religion. It was the year 1971 when a systematic attempt under the guise of crushing the Bengal rebellion took a horrific turn in Bangladesh. Targeting Hindus with genocidal intent, an ethnic cleansing commenced on the dark night of March 25th. The shocking reality is that the successive governments have consistently failed to acknowledge this, as the ethnic cleansing it undeniably was. It was labeled as the War of Liberation. None of the government ever said a word about the number of victims from the Hindu community. However, those victims of atrocity were overwhelmingly Hindu, constituting a staggering 80% of the casualties. Out of 3 million that were killed, nearly 2.5 million were Hindus. This targeted persecution, based solely on religion, remains unrecognized by all successive governments. Instead of confronting this dark chapter of history, this issue has been systematically downplayed and ignored. The generational trauma inflicted upon the Hindu population of Bangladesh is immeasurable and unacknowledged. In fact, countless efforts have been made to marginalize and displace this indigenous community, with the world turning a blind eye to their plight. Driven to the brink of extinction in their own homeland, these historically rooted people have been reduced to an insignificant minority today, their sufferings silenced and their story untold. The UN chief, for instance, who was so vocal about blaming Israel for their self-defense against the people of Gaza, from where they withdrew, the Israeli forces withdrew back in 2005, more than a decade ago, by calling it a suffocating occupation, no less, in the wake of the deadly attack perpetrated by the savages of Gaza, the terrorists of Gaza, back in October the 7th, 2023. So the UN chief got the guts to say that, oh look, this was a suffocating occupation. This is the same guy who remained completely silent when innocent Hindus were butchered in their own homeland, deprived of their property, stolen of their forefathers' birthplace, suffering brutal persecution. He remained completely silent in this instance. It forces me to question, what do these people really stand for? What are the values do they really represent? An apparent double standard? Is this the standard the UN chief should have?